accommodate all speakers within the 30-minute overall limit, the board president may shorten each speaker time. Constructive criticism is in order. Rudeness, vulgarity, disruptive conduct, or remarks disparaging personal dignity are not in order and will not be allowed under the Arizona open meeting law. The governing board cannot discuss or act on any items not listed on the agenda. Board members may respond to criticism made by a speaker, ask staff to review a matter, or ask that a matter be put on a future agenda. So if Heather could step up, state your name for the record, and have your 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Heather Zahn, and I would like to talk about traffic safety at our schools. Um, it's just recently been this year. It's gotten pretty bad. My daughter goes to Stetson Hills, and what's happening is at one of the side gate that they come out of, there's people that are driving the wrong way down the road in order to prevent having to wait in line because the traffic backs up. So they're driving the opposite way, probably about 100 yards. And there's multiple cars that will do it just because they see one do it. So others do it as well. It happens nearly every day at the time that the kids are getting out of school. And this is specifically near like the third grade and the fourth grade gates. These are young kids that don't necessarily even have a height that exceeds the height of the vehicles. So they're not seen. Contacted the Phoenix Police Department. They're obviously very busy, right? They've come out once, and I saw them write a ticket, but it takes time for them to write a ticket, right? So they wrote one, and that's all I saw, right? And this happens every day, and it's 6 weeks into school, and the crossing guard is out there. The school's doing what they can from that gate, but it doesn't really seem to be enough. So I'm wondering if the board can consider what more can be done about traffic safety at our schools. Thank you.
Which specific street?
Is it just
This is at Stetson Hills Loop and Dean Hills Parkway.
next up is Wendy Crow.
Hi, I'm Wendy Crow. In 1939, Arthur Pine introduced a song and promoted I Am an American Day at the 1939 World's Fair. William Hearst advocated this through his chain of daily newspapers and the creation of a holiday in celebration of American citizenship. In 1940, the U.S. Congress designated the third Sunday in May as I Am an American Day. This holiday was promoted all over the country by Hearst newsreels, and by 1949, governors of all 48 states had issued Constitution Day proclamations. On February 29, 1952, Congress moved the I Am an American Day observation to September 17th and renamed it Citizenship Day. In 1953, Ohio established a statewide Constitution Day in honor of the creation of the U.S. Constitution in 1787. It was then taken to the United States Senate, which passed a resolution designated September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. The Senate and House approved the resolution. It was signed into law by President Dwight Eisenhower on April 15, 1957. A federal law establishing the Constitution Week holiday was created in 2004 with the passage of an amendment by Senator Robert Byrd to the Omnibus Spending Bill of 2004. The amendment renamed the holiday Constitution Day and Citizenship Day and mandates that all publicly funded educational institutions and all federal agencies provide educational instruction on the history of the American Constitution on September 17th each year. In May 2005, the United States Department of Education announced the enactment of this law and that it would apply to any school receiving federal funds of any kind. Since Deer Valley School District receives federal funding, can the board provide proof of the Constitution Day and Citizenship Day lesson, such as a curriculum schedule or teacher's plan?
Thank you. Next up is John Hawkins. Step up to the record. State your name for the record. Oh, sorry, Joshua, not John.
Joshua Hawkins. Good evening, board. I stand before you tonight for the third meeting in a row. I have before you all the research of things that everyone has directed me to review in regards to the issue I was having. I've looked these over inside and out. At this point, I can pinpoint a policy like the HR lady can. What I have found was well-written and thoughtful policies to protect the kids, policies that give us precise instructions of what to do and when to do it, policies that are also polite enough to define things we may have a question on. If that's not enough, the state of Arizona was so kind as to make these rules permanent and consistent across all schools. When I stand here, I do not do so to boast about how well things are written. I'm here to speak on the gross misconduct of this administration applying a threat assessment wrongly against my daughter by creating a safety plan. A safety plan per the ALS director is meant for the safety of my child. By his own admission that in the 2 months he's been on the job, the only understanding the district has explained to him that a safety plan is for bullies, for those that seek to harm others. Yet my child is the one being harassed. My daughter gets called names. My daughter is being pulled from her friends and isolated. And this administration seeks to strip her of her victims' rights and apply the consequences designed for bullies and use it to further isolate my child from the outside world. Dr. Z agreed that sometimes a safety plan is for the other kid too. This is the explanation you all have been given to him. The moral compass is all over the place on this one. The DVUSD handbook reads under threat management process that this is the first time that the book ever mentions a safety plan. Step 7 out of 9, if the campus team evaluates the situation as a category 2 or 3, a minimum to moderate risk, school administrator or designee creates a student safety plan that will outline a plan of action to minimize further incidences. So Dr. Z, is my daughter a 2 or a 3? However, there is redemption. Immediately after the threat policy is the victim's assistant policy, where my child should be placed accurately as a victim. This policy at least gives some hope that schools are here to help. If followed correctly, this would be nice to see across all campuses. Whenever a student feels bullied or threatened, they should tell a parent, teacher, counselor, nurse, or other school employee immediately. The most important step a victim must take to stop bullying is to report it. Students should not wait to see if someone else notices the bullying. The student should tell someone they trust and who is able to help them. If the student does not feel that way, they can report the bullying or threat in person. They should write a report explaining the situation. The most important step is to report. Then you have all failed at this first step. Broken online portals for reporting, front offices that have no clue what form and are not printed for students, and emails that are not responded to. You should not wait to see if someone else notices the bullying, which is exactly why we, the parents, are here tonight. We're not waiting for you to see it. Someone they trust and who is able to help them. I'm sorry to say that I may have to start training my kids that there is no one they can trust and no one that can help them. After 10 years in this district, you've yet to stop it. You deny its existence even now by not labeling it bullying or harassment.
Tiffany Hawkins. Good evening, board members. Policy JICK-R states superintendent shall provide the school principals, supervisors, and all the district employees the information necessary to comply to governing board policy JICK, the bully policy. The deputy superintendent down to the teachers fall under the superintendent, and all are responsible. The ALS team refuses to label anything as bullying, harassment, or intimidation. The safety coordinator has an excuse for every altercation but the one I listed to her: physical assault and cyberbullying in high school, and no comment. She neglected to comment on the most obvious case to define and document. All the wellness counselors are placed in high school. Maybe they can handle it and teach the students about the district's definitions. Just last week, DVHS had 3 fist fights on campus in the halls, 2 before and 1 after. Doesn't sound like things are under control with your definitions. I wonder what the district will label this as. Maybe if someone stopped them when they were younger, this wouldn't be the behavior today. I am seeing this with righteous indignation as it pertains to this district. The board has been provided a very lengthy email outlining every email, phone call, law, policy, forms, and screenshots, all in order as it happens so they can see where I've been. From the steps we have been through to, we have concluded one thing. All the employees of the ALS team are in agreement, including the superintendent. They have all said out loud or through email, nothing in your school is labeled as bully or harassment and therefore will never be documented. All blatant violations of ARS 15-341, paragraph 37, subsection B, requiring documentation of all suspected incidents of bullying and harassment. This code does not allow you for your interpretation. So where are all the reports we have made in person to the school? This law also provides how bullying and harassment is defined. So why does your definitions never come close to the law? Failure to report is a violation of policy. ALS director confirmed the principal admitted to no knowledge of bullying forms or reported procedures. Now that it was brought to their attention, they would be using it. Superintendent, per policy JICK-R, is responsible for the lack of training. Safety coordinator labeled nothing as bullying and harassment or assault. After shooting down, then suggested a safety plan. 5 times we were pressured and 5 times we denied that. Last study session, I mentioned the broken portal. Z and Finch stated that I was inaccurate. I am accurate because I filled out this online form and over 2 weeks later, no response besides the automated email. I know because I also did my own audit on Greenbrier, unaware of any bullying form, directed me online. I stated I did that already with no response. The behavioral specialist wasn't sure who they even went to. Greenbrier sent one over their own and had nothing. They called the safety coordinator who confirmed there was none to be found. Where did they go? We have not been heard from or helped in any significant way by the ALS. Failure to comply with state laws governing policies and procedures. Mislabeling bullying, harassment in all schools. Deny, delay.
That's all of the public comments until we have actual agenda items.
We're going to move on to district report. Item A, finance report, Mr. Miglerino.
President Paperman, members of the board, Dr. Finch, we have the report for August financial reports to share with you this evening. So I was taking notes and need to get caught up here. This report is the first report for the fiscal year. It is showing that as we adopted in our budget, that we have an unapplied balance of just under $4.2 million of the $277 million budget that we approved. And that does not include the one-time supplement of $8.4 million that the legislators approved after we had made our final decisions about the salary recommendation for the current school year. So adding those two amounts together, we're reporting a projected carry forward of about $12.5 million as of the first report for this fiscal year. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board might have.
Dr. Miglerino, Mr. Miglerino, can you please explain to the public what carry forward is?
President Paperman, carry forward is created when the budget capacity for a given period of time is not fully spent. So it's a savings, if you will, from the time period. So at this point, we are projecting that of the $277 million budget, that 12.5 of it would not be spent at the end of. It is very early in the fiscal year, so it's hard for us to have a lot of confidence in that $12.5 million number. And the vast majority of that, or 8.4 million of it, was not even considered when we adopted the budget because it was a late add. And it should be clear, it is only being included in our budget for this fiscal year. It is just one-time money. It will not continue in future years.
Mrs. Fisher, you had a question?
Yeah, we normally see enrollment in these, and we normally get enrollment every week for the first 100 days, and we have not. And can you explain why?
President Paperman, Ms. Fisher, it was my understanding that we were not going to include the enrollment reports in the frequency that we had in the past. That's the instructions that I received.
Can I ask where that came from?
That came from me.
Did it
The-
ever go before the board?
Goes to the board and has been historically every once a month, the first month,
No,
first
it
Monday of
has
the
always
month.
come every week for the first 100 days and at every board meeting.
Not just comes to, it's reported to the public at the board meeting.
It
the
is
first board of
reported
the meeting.
at the board meeting, but it comes to the board every week for the first 100 days and has for the last 10 years. So my question is why the decision to stop providing it?
What do you need it for?
I aggregate data because I value
Oh,
data.
we can get it to you if you like it.
I've requested it every week for the last month.
Well,
And been denied
the
it.
person that actually done it, Heather Mock we don't have her. So we've had people stepping in to help out, so. we
So
can get
is it
for you.
that we don't have somebody doing the report? Is that what?
Correct, we can do it.
Okay, so Dr. Fain, can you provide this report
Sure,
to the public?
we'll put it in the Friday update.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have a question, board members? We're going to move on to item 5, consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve consent agenda?
I move the board accept, sorry, I gotta get to it here because my thing isn't working. Consent agenda 5A through 5K, as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Say nay.
Aye.
Aye. We're moving on to item 6. Item A, approve employee professional development update. Can I get a motion for this item?
I move that the governing board approve all employee professional development out of state per governing board policy GCE. I can't see it. There's no
Second.
boxes there.
Any questions, board member, on this item?
Yes,
Mr.
President
Carver?
Paperman. Do we have somebody in the room that could help explain to the community the NAEYC annual conference?
I can't open it.
Do you need a question to be repeated? They're working on it.
President Paperman, Mr. Carver, I apologize. The NAEC is the Early Childhood Conference. It's committed to professional, supportive, respectful, safe and welcoming environment for all participants. It's really for our preschool and pre-kindergarten educators. That would include not only our developmental preschool, but our community education preschool. I do know that 2 of the directors are attending that, as is fairly typical across the past years, and then some of the educators.
Thank you, Dr. Gillen. Appreciate it. Could you take a quick second without spending too much time on this? Can you speak to some of the successes our early childhood development group has had in the district?
President Paperman, Mr. Carver. Well, when you talk about successes, most, if not all, of our pre-kinder, those youngsters that are going to go into kindergarten next year, go in prepared, whether it is from our community ed program or our developmental program, who also include typical peers. And that's one of our feeder programs that allows us to start school strong in kindergarten. When we look at our preschool, our 2-year-olds in our community ed program, and then 3- and 4-year-old programs in both community ed and developmental preschool, those are strong programs that support our youngest learners learning, type of learning. It's not a hard academic, it's more center-based, play-based, and socialization-based. And that prepares them for pre-kinder, which then is a little bit more academic, that prepares them for kindergarten.
Thank you, Dr. Gilligan. That's all.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed, say nay. Aye.
I'm going to abstain because I can't see the items. So I'm going to abstain because I can't see them. I don't know what I'm voting on.
Moving on to item B. Approve addenda pre-approval. Can I have a motion for this item?
No. I move that the governing board approve the addenda pre-approval as presented.
Second.
Mr. McLaurin, any comments on this?
President Paperman, there's no formal presentation for this. This is a routine item that we consider each time we get together.
I have a question.
You have a question, Mr. Carver?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Miglorino, given the conversation that we've had the last several board meetings, particular item, when we're looking at the funding source, if it says club account or club, is that to imply a group that is run for or by the students? Would those be the accounts that have been in question lately as to whether or not we're receiving proper authorization for spend?
President Paperman, Mr. Carver, that is correct.
To that point, what does it look like to be able to provide, and maybe I might not understand the process, so if I'm misspeaking, please add. What would it look like to provide the authorization for those line items with the addenda when it comes so that we can have better transparency to that level?
President Paper and Mr. Carver, we do require that the student clubs approve any purchase that comes from their account, whether it's for an addenda or for any other purpose. So eventually that is a requirement. It's just in question as to whether or not we do not require it at this point for pre-approval. Because the process that we established actually happens in the previous year. So we actually pre-approve the addenda for the fall at the end of the school year of the previous school year. So it could be that the school, and this is not terribly unusual, but that a different student group would be committing a future student group for the approval itself.
So, okay, let me parrot this back to you, then make sure I understand this. So these pre-approvals that we're looking at here are for a future date. I see over here 7/31/2023, like for the Eagle Cruise sponsor semester 1. So it is expected next year that they are going to need/want that position. So this is the pre-approval for it. But when the approval happens, the students in charge of that organization will actually document, vote, whatever their process is for that group. And can you explain to us the process from that point so that we can, I guess what I'm trying to do is there's been some concern that we may not be following the letter of the law in this. So I just want everybody to understand the process and how we either can or cannot verify later on that people use these funds.
Yeah, so at the point in which the actual expenditure happens, you are correct. The student group would have had to memorialize their vote authorizing the expense, and we require them to submit the minutes of that meeting to have a documented record of their desire to actually expend those funds.
So if somebody wanted to make a note of this particular addenda, and next July, wanted to find out whether or not the Eagle crew utilized that pre-approval. They would go through you, if it's a board member, to get that documentation, or a FOIA if it's the public, in order to understand accomplished?
Yeah, so the actual addenda itself will then show up in the consent agenda for when the person that is named receive the addenda will actually be named specifically. And there's a list of them this evening that you just did, I think 13 pages of addenda that were approved. So they wouldn't even have to do a FOIA request. They're publicly available on the website with each meeting in which we have addenda to be approved. But to get the actual minutes, they would have to ask us for a public records to receive that. We do not post the minutes of the meeting.
Right. Okay. Thank you for walking us through that. I appreciate it.
Mrs. Fisher, you have a question?
Well, looking at this same addenda, this is actually for this year. It's July of this year through November of this year. So are you stating that last year, the students from last year voted and approved this addenda for this year?
President Paperman, Ms. Fisher, no. This addenda is actually from July through December, and it happens of this year. And this one happens to be a brand-new addenda that the school has asked for. But in the event of an existing addenda, we would have asked them to approve this in May for the July through December dates that show here. But since this happens to be a brand-new addenda for this particular campus, it wasn't pre-approved. They just came up with this.
So is this a new club?
I can't answer that. I don't know the answer to that.
Because do we always have an addenda for every club? Is every teacher who has a club paid an addenda for their club?
President Paperman, Ms. Fisher, I don't think that would be consistent, but I would say the overwhelming majority of people that run a club do get compensated via either an addenda or extra duty pay or some form.
Okay. Is that standard? Because, I mean, is that just standard for Deer Valley?
President Piper and Ms. Fisher, do you mean standard for Deer Valley, that there would be varied payment structures around clubs, or are you looking
Just in general, in the
specifically?
industry, I've never seen club sponsors get paid for being a club sponsor. So I'm asking if that's a standard practice in Deer Valley.
It is in Deer Valley. It is, many of the club addendas are outlined in the certified manual, so some of them are IBN addendas and for a very long time.
Okay, so if these students want to have a club, then they are required to raise money to pay for a teacher? Because that's what this addenda is, paid for by student-raised funds. Correct? Well, I do also see a tax credit, because you have 525 as your tax credit, because your auxiliary and tax are flipped, correct?
That is correct.
So we have two that are club, well, it's not the same club. Well, maybe it is. No, it's not.
Yeah,
So we have two that are paid with tax credit and two that are students, where students will have to raise money if they want to have a club so that they can pay for a sponsor. Correct?
yeah, correct. And this particular addenda happens to be new. The process that we have, it is required that a job description be created for any addenda, and that job description has specific tasks and duties. That job description is approved by our Human Resources Department before we'll even bring it for pre-approval. The question, I think, was more, is it a requirement? The question I heard, I'm just making sure I heard it correctly, is it a requirement to have an addenda for a club? And the answer would be no.
Okay, that's why I was asking if it was just, so we do have some teachers who are running clubs and not being paid for it, and others are being brought, and there's a requirement that the students raise the funds through whatever efforts to pay these addenda based on funding source.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is a school's decision, right? A school-based decision. We don't dictate that to the schools.
Right. Now, you had said, or as Mr. Carver clarified with you, that they vote at the end of the year for the next year. Did they change the rules on that? Because I was under the impression, or it used to be, that the students had to, for this year's funds, had to be this year's students. The only time it was ever allowed to do that, what you had just expressed, was in the case of the class. So the junior class will provide X for the senior class. As the senior class leaves, they vote to do whatever, and then anything that's left residual goes to the freshman class of the next year. And it rotates that way. But the rules for clubs are that the students raising the funds are the students using the funds, correct?
President Paperman, Ms. Fisher, that is correct. I was trying to indicate that it could be problematic that because we require pre-approval of the addenda, and we ask for the fall addenda to be pre-approved in May, that it could be problematic for the reasons that you just described. But it is also true that student-run organizations can provide funding for a future generation, just as you described with the senior class, generally donating any unspent dollars to a different class, whether it's the junior class or a freshman class, an incoming freshman class, something of that nature.
Do you know if Publication 707, Department of Revenue, still is in circulation?
I believe it is. I mean, unless you know differently, I believe it is.
I was just going to ask, I haven't had time to look at the latest regulations because I'm no longer running student activities. If you could pull that publication and provide it to the board, perhaps that would help. Because I still maintain my concern that we are pre-committing students. I do understand students want their clubs, and I absolutely support them. If the students are in the process of forming a club, and in that process of forming their club, they say, we understand there's going to be an addenda, we will have to raise funds, all in favor, say aye, and they have a majority vote, absolutely, then those kids have decided that that is worth them raising that money. Us doing it previously and then them trying to say, okay, well, we got you a club, but now you all have to raise money to pay your sponsor. That's where I have problem, is our pre-committing students to raise funds for honestly things that I believe that on some level, either we should be funding through tax credit or through other means, because there is a lot of means. In my many years of doing student activities, not once did students raise funds for teachers. Teachers raise funds for students. And it's just, it's a difference in the way clubs are run, I guess, but.
Yeah, President Paperman, Ms. Fisher, I will say that we did get a legal opinion. I didn't personally request it. Ms. Mock did when she was an employee, and that was shared with the board about a year ago. I think it was in September of 2022.
It was, and it was based on the conversation I had with the Auditor General, who said all the same things that we had discussed. Ms. Mock and I had discussed them, and the legal opinion as well. And it came down to the one line from the Auditor General that said is students should not be coerced. So if students are brought in and told, look, we can have this club, but you have to raise it, that's a sense of a coercion. And so that has always been my concern, because it's predetermined before the kids have even done a club. I haven't looked at the Deer Valley process. I've always kept a distance because I didn't want to impose the way I ran my programs on how you run your programs. Every district does them different. I just want to make sure we are within the letter of the law and that we are not putting a burden on a student that should be an adult burden. That's my only concern. I don't have any more questions.
Mr. Meglorino, so every school has a process to follow, correct? For this agenda, the students or schools need to, is there a process that they need to follow for compliance?
President Paperman, yes, we have an administrative management guideline that outlines the process for addenda.
Could you provide that to the board so we can see the process?
Certainly.
Thank you. We're going to move on to item C. Oh, the vote, sorry. Okay, so I'm going to call the vote for item B. All those in favor, say aye. All that oppose, say nay. Aye.
For my stated reasons, I'll vote no.
So now we're going to move to item C. Can I have a motion for item?
This is one of the ones that we haven't previewed, but straight to action, correct? Yeah. That the governing board accept administration's recommendation to approve the terms and conditions of the awarded school facilities division building renewal grant fund for design and phase at Desert Sage, Greenbrier, and Vista Peaks roof replacements. Authorize the governing board president to sign the school facilities terms and conditions document.
Second, President Paperman, I've got a question.
Mr. Carver?
Mr. Miglorino, can you clarify that these items had already been previously voted on by the board in previous meetings, but the school facilities board has changed the process, and so they've requested us to refresh our approval and resubmit?
President Paperman, Mr. Carver, that is correct. So these were previously, these specific projects and the terms and conditions were approved on August 2022. The School Facilities Board has gone through some changes now referred to as the School Facilities Division, and these terms and conditions are for the design phase of the re-roofing projects for that, for those same three schools, Desert Sage, Greenbrier, and Vista Peak.
Mr. Miglorino, do you have a presentation for this?
No,
Okay.
President Paperman, no, no formal presentation because, again, this has been shared with the board
Okay.
previously.
Any
So-
other questions?
Yeah, are you stating that this, nothing has changed? It is identical to what was approved over a year ago?
President Paperman, Ms. Fisher, it's not identical because of the changes at the School Facilities Board, and this is for the design phase now. So we're entering into a new phase of, this is probably 2 years in the works. I'm so glad that these roofs have not come to the point of failure. They are in need of being replaced, but the process is long to be able to get the School Facilities Board to even consider replacing them. So the main change is this is now moving to the design phase and the changes in the document where it's no longer the School Facilities Board, it's now the School Facilities Division.
So this isn't what we reviewed in the past, or? Correct.
President Paperman, Ms. Fisher, if you want to know if they're identical documents, they are not, due to the changes I just stated.
Mr. Miglorino, really quick, could you give a brief synopsis on what the School Facilities Board is for those listening in today?
President Paperman, Mr. Carver, the School Facilities Division now, because the School Facilities Board was dissolved, is the state, is a component of the Department of Administration now. It used to be its own separate state agency. It's now a division within the Department of Administration. They're set up with the responsibility of maintaining the school properties throughout the state and providing for new construction where it may be necessary based on the criteria that they have developed. So there's a set of standards that they have. Don't want to sound like I'm editorializing too much, but the standards are very basic, and the process that they go through. For example, even when we were a growing district, we did not qualify for new school funding from the School Facilities Board just due to the geographic size of our district. So there are some limitations as to what we can expect as a district from the School Facilities Division, but we are trying to see if they can help us with these specific three school re-roofing projects, which is under their purview and charge.
Thank you, sir.
So, Mr. Miglorino, so you stated that this was approved August of 2022, but what we're voting today is not the same.
President Paperman, it's not the exact same document. It's for the same projects. The projects haven't changed. It's for the changes that have happened with the School Facilities Board, and moving through the process to now what they're considering the design phase. But exact same projects. The documents are not identical, but they are terms and conditions is what you approved back on August 9th of 2022. And what we're asking you to approve today are terms and conditions for the design phase. And there is more similarity than differences in the documents.
So you're saying for design phase, meaning, are you talking about cost, like it changed from 2022 to now, like more or less?
President Paperman, no, we haven't gotten that far in the process.
Okay, so this is
is just the scope of what they are willing to consider to be part of the state minimum standards to redo the roofs at those three particular schools. The first phase was really identifying if they would even accept the projects, and now they're working on whether or not the design of the re-roofing of those schools would be. So again, same schools, very similar terms and conditions, just moving through the process. And because they changed from the School Facilities Board to the School Facilities Division, the documents are not identical.
Okay. Mrs. Fisher?
So are these a series of new grants? Because you have adopted in 2008, then you have modified in 2009, 10, 11, 12, oh no, that was 12, 13, 16, 17, 18, 20, 22, 23. Are these different grants? Are they new grants? Are they, or did we ever receive a grant on all these other dates? These are the dates that are on the top of these documents because we've never previewed them, so I'm asking.
President Paperman, Ms. Fisher, no, we did not receive any grants on all those dates. Again, same three projects. The School Facilities Division sent us these terms and conditions, a requirement for us to move into the design phase. I believe those are versions of the document that have changed, and that last change from 22 to 23 is the changes that I referred to, the document not being identical to the one that was considered and approved by the board back in 22.
Okay, let me try and symbolize it one more time. So basically, we want a project. We've wanted a project since 2008, and we just keep taking a stab at it. Trust me, I'm on your side. I know the School Facilities Board stinks, and now I don't know if the School Facilities District is any better. I'm assuming it's not. Is this that we just keep stabbing at it and hoping they finally approve and take us to that stage? Or is there going to be a cost to us? Are they going to fund this stage?
President Paperman, Ms. Fisher, no. I think you're mistaken. Those are versions of the document. We have not been working on trying to get these projects funded by the School Facilities Division since 2008. We've been working on it since, I think, 2021, maybe. I'd have to go back through my notes. Those are just versions of the document that they have listed on the document that you're looking at.
So this is just some form document that they have that they just slap on a new district's name and give a new version?
That is my understanding. Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So at least we can understand what that is, because that's not the way it reads. Who's funding the design? Are they funding the design if this is approved?
Ms. Fisher, no, they have not funded anything at this point in time. They have accepted the projects, and we are considering them. If they don't fund the projects, we know the roofs have to be redone, and we will use our bond proceeds to do the roof projects. But we are trying to follow the process that they have outlined to see if the state will fund them, so we don't have to use our bond funds for something the state was obligated to also do.
Okay, so what's our bottom line? If they don't fund, which historically they have not funded most projects, even when accepted, what's the bottom line? I know we still have to do it, but what's the dollar amount and what are we What are we voting on? What's this going to cost us? It's actually what's going to cost the taxpayers?
President Paperman, Ms. Fisher, the design has not been established, so I can't provide you with a dollar amount of what the cost is going to be.
What are
But
the designers going to cost?
I don't have that dollar amount to be able to present to you. I think we have expended, I think it was roughly $6,000 per school for the first phases, but I don't have that information. I'd be happy to provide it to you.
Thank you.
I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. All that opposed say nay.
Aye.
If it comes back and there's dollar amounts so I can know what I'm voting on, I would vote for it. For now, I'm going to have to say nay.
Moving on to item D. Oh, we had a person? Okay. A speaker? Okay. Over here.
I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to approve the change order for Inspiration Mountain School E32 construction project to McCarthy Building Company for the addition of the 500 building.
Second.
And we did have a public comment. Do you want to make your comment before or after the presentation? Before the presentation? Okay, if you want to go ahead and step up, well, our mic disappeared, sorry. We'll get you one. And then when you do get the mic, just state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes. And you were already here when I read the admonishment. Go ahead.
Donna Gutowski. My comments regard the bond override and pay to play. As an example, I will use $1 million. Contractors such as McCarthy Construction pay $2,000 plus to a school board candidate's campaign. Let's call him Tony P. Tony gets voted on the school board and votes approval to hold an off-cycle election, which drastically decreases the amount of potential voters. Many are already school or government employees, contractors, employees, their families and friends, literally thousands of yes votes. If approved, the voters, the 100 million goes to the schools, but becomes 140 to 160 million over time with interest. This money goes to the same contractors, such as McCarthy Construction and Core. This is called pay to play, and millions in contracts are awarded to contractors that fund the campaigns of individuals like Tony P. This scam is occurring throughout Arizona and includes many of the same contractors. McCarthy was involved in the Paradise Valley campaign, Cave Creek, and if you look at tonight's agenda item 6D, approved change order for addition of the 500 building Inspiration Mountain, $2,460,000 to McCarthy Building Company. Now, if I present the problem, I should present the solution. I do have to ask, that $2 million, is that a change order or is that the final cost? The solution: we must create policy that prevents this pay-to-play corruption and disallow off-cycle elections. Districts don't need legislation. They can implement this policy. Any and all contractors who provide any financial or in-kind contribution towards the bond or school board candidate by direct donation or through other means are disqualified from bidding on projects or services with the district for 10 years. If it's discovered they violated this policy, they pay 110% of all amounts paid to them. This creates a policy that decapitates the contractor for corruptly influencing these elections, and they'll stop immediately. School districts should also stop taking advantage of their community by holding elections in off-cycle years. We know Tony P. received $2,000 plus from McCarthy Construction for his school board campaign. Which Deer Valley board members have received any campaign money from McCarthy, Core, or any other winners of construction bids awarded by Deer Valley? How much? Please contact me if you received any money from potential contractor winners. Aren't these the same sponsors of many of the out-of-state CTE conferences? Till I hear from you, we'll continue our research. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Oh, is there another comment? Okay. Mr. Miglorino, do you have a presentation for item D?
I do, President Paperman. As the motion indicated, this is for the completion of Inspiration Mountain School, we sometimes refer to Elementary 32. Just some background information, back in June of 2021 is when the original contract was awarded to McCarthy Building Company. And due to the cost escalation that occurred, that was driven largely by the pandemic, but also by some of the large construction projects that were happening in the valley, we were unable to include the 500 building in the original contract to McCarthy based on the budget that was allocated in the 2019 bond. For this year, we added the 7th grade. I should say that we opened the school as a K-6 school. For this year, we added the 7th grade with the commitment that we would complete the 500 building to be able to add the 8th grade for the 2024-2025 school year. The governing board approved a change order at the last board meeting when we were together for the masonry block. Because of the long lead time, that block is currently tracking at 26 weeks. So in order for us to get the block ordered, the board did approve that because we had not worked out all the details of the GMP for the change order that we're bringing you this evening. It should be noted the 500 building includes 4 classrooms, 1 science classroom, and a set of boys and girls restrooms. During the process of working through the GMP with McCarthy, we originally did not agree on the price, so we did go out and get an alternative bid from another provider, and their price was within $100,000 of the price from McCarthy. One benefit of going through that exercise, we were able to compare the subcontractor line items, and we can incorporate, and we are working towards incorporating some of the less expensive subcontractors from the alternative bid in the McCarthy price, if we can work that out with all the parties. Just in terms of the budget, we had $22 million originally allocated for this project. We are currently at $22.2 million. That $200,000 overage will have to come out of other areas of the 2019 bond to be able to cover the deficit. The change order that was approved at the last board meeting was just under $78,000. Adding that to the change order that's being considered this evening of $2.4 million, the total cost for the 500 building would be $2.5 million. And this will be funded from district capital funds to not further encumber the 2019 bond since we're already over. We did have a line item in that 2019 bond allocation of $2 million for student growth. A portion of that was used to be, it was either the Union Park Classroom Addition or Sonoran Foot. I believe it was the Union Park School that we used a portion of the 2019 bond for. This is just an overall site plan. The shaded area is the 500 building where it will complete the courtyard area that's just adjacent to the 400 building, kind of between the 400 building and the 600 building, which is the multi-purpose building. This is just kind of that highlighted or zoomed in. And this actually is the floor plan, so you can see the 4 classrooms with the science classroom being on the far right of this particular slide. And I believe that's all the information that I had, and be happy to answer any questions the board might have.
Any questions, board member? I will call for the vote. Oh, you have Mrs. Fisher, Mrs. Fisher.
So, because we didn't preview this one, I know we did vote to have that building. I know it's very necessary at Inspiration Mountain. Being out there, it's obviously that probably should have been planned all along that we needed those buildings. I guess I'm a little confused though. We're now doing a change order because we didn't order enough, or just because things changed, or can we get a total what the whole picture looks like? Or are we going to be in the same position? Are we going to be in the same position 6 months down the road with another change order?
President Paperman, Ms. Fisher, no, it's guaranteed maximum price. That is the reason it is a change order specifically that we're asking for is because we have a prime contract with McCarthy initially. So that original contract that was approved in June of 2021, we are just adding to that prime contract the additional $2.5 million, or in this case, $2.46 million, because the $78,000 was already added previously. But that will be the total cost for the school.
So you're staying with McCarthy because that's who you had already done. We didn't bid it out differently, correct? We were with McCarthy, so it was approved, so that's why you're staying with them?
President Paperman, Ms. Fisher, as I explained previously, we got an initial cost from McCarthy and did not agree with the pricing, so we got a competitive price, and it was within $100,000 of the price from McCarthy, but the individual subcontracting amounts were different, and so we're utilizing some of the expensive subcontractors to be able to drive the price down even further.
So what you're saying is we're using McCarthy, but we're also going to use the other guy's subcontractors to try and bring McCarthy's down?
President Paperman, Ms. Fisher, McCarthy is a general contractor. They are not self-performing any of the functions of this particular project. So, yeah, we are replacing subcontractors that McCarthy originally had on the job with alternatives that are less expensive that can be vetted completely, that we know can complete the work, et cetera.
Okay, so is it still going through McCarthy, though?
Yes.
Okay, so
you're saying that you're replacing with alternative contractor because of the pricing, because it's better pricing, I assume.
so you found better pricing for and submitted them to McCarthy, and so McCarthy is still doing it. They're going with your subcontractors.
President Paperman, Ms. Fisher, they're not our subcontractors. We have introduced the subcontractors from the competitive bid to McCarthy and asked them if they would consider using them because they were less expensive to bid the exact same job.
So then McCarthy did reduce their bill by whatever money you're saving by finding the subcontractors.
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay, I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. All that opposed say nay.
Aye.
Aye. Can I have a motion for item E?
Okay, my item E says the same thing. Yeah, it's coming up. I move that the governing board accept administration's recommendation to award the job order contract with Core Construction for the North Service Center Garage Project using the 1 GPA cooperative contract.
I second.
Mr. Miglerino, you have a presentation for this?
We do, President Paperman. So again, just a little background regarding this. We've had several reviews that have indicated that additional efficiencies could be gained by having a transportation satellite office in the northern part of our district. We originally created the Northern Services Center based on comments from an Auditor General performance audit, and included in subsequent reviews was that if we had the ability to maintain the fleet at this location, that would increase those efficiencies. The committee that developed the list of projects for the 2019 bond did include a bus garage in the 2019 bond. It's specifically identified as one of the projects. And we have determined that a small bus garage up there to do light maintenance, things like oil changes, brakes, tires, batteries, things of that nature, would serve that area well. We will maintain the main bus yard at the main yard at 51st Avenue, but we also wanted to have the ability to expand this as changes may occur in future years. So the bond project, which was, it's worth noting that the bond project was conceived back in 2018 when the committee was convened for the 2019 election, and we set aside $1.2 million. The GMP came in at $1.3 million, which under the of the time that has transpired between when it was originally budgeted and now, that is probably a very fortunate GMP for the project. That overage would have to come out of unspent 2019 bond dollars, that $157,000 that you see there. This is an overall site plan. The shaded area is where the new bus garage would be, just to the north of the Northern Services Center, which is located at the Desert Mountain School site. This is just an enlarged plan of that to show the two bays for the buses, as well as a small office area and parts yard and a restroom facility, which can be seen from the floor plan here. And I'd be happy to answer any questions the board might have.
Any questions, board members?
I have a question.
Mrs. Orway.
Mr. Miglerino, approximately how many buses do we have at that specific area?
President Paperman, Ms. Ordway, I believe there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 buses that are at the Northern Services Center that operate out of there.
And not tonight, but at some point in time, if you could maybe just calculate the amount of fuel that we would save if we could do those services up there for those buses, as opposed to bring them down to 51st Avenue and Union Hills. I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I do.
Mrs. Fisher?
I know that when it's been a long time, but I recall that when we did that when we established this northern bus area, that our transportation dropped significantly from an extreme high to, well, still much better. Transportation is still high because we're a large district. I haven't looked in a while. Are we still maintaining those savings? And do we have a projection on what savings this will provide? Because I know, I mean, these days, gas alone, just coming from up there way the heck down to where Desert Sky which is where our other buses are, is got to be costly. Do we have even a rough estimate of what the projected savings would be for doing this project?
President Paperman, Ms. Fisher, no, we haven't calculated the savings. Although we believe there will be a savings, I don't think it's going to be a extremely large amount of savings because it's not as if we're transporting those or relocating those buses on a weekly basis or even a monthly basis based on how many miles they're driving to be able to do this light maintenance. But it's not just the mileage, it's, it's the amount of time. Somebody with a CDL has to be driving those buses back down to the main yard for all of those light maintenance duties. So we are not considering adding staff for for this garage. We are going to split the shift with the existing mechanics that we have at the main garage. So what we envision is that the light maintenance would be done maybe once a week or some rotation that we haven't quite worked out, but with the existing staff that we have within our mechanics.
Well, that saved the devil's advocate, because my next question was going to be, are we going to be able to find mechanics to hire? Have you spoke with the mechanics? Are they all right with that type of change in work location? The only reason I'm asking is because, I drive 100 miles a day to work. So, 50 miles one way, 50 miles the other, 100 miles. It's roughly costs me about $9,000 a year to go to work. I make a lot more than, well, I don't know, these days mechanics make a lot of money, so I'm not even going to say that. But is it going to be burdensome on any of our mechanics to have to drive up there? Or are they going to come here and take a fleet vehicle up there or what have you, a service truck, whatever?
President Paperman, Ms. Fisher, yeah, we have not worked out all of. You know that some of our staff and mechanics actually drive from there and
Oh, that might be good.
drive from that. So they're currently driving from that vicinity to the 51st Avenue yard. This would allow them to, lessen
Work
their
closer to
commute for the schedule that we would work out for this garage once it's completed.
Okay, thank you. Sounds like you considered all of it.
I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. All that oppose say nay.
Aye.
Aye. Five oh, okay. Moving on to preview. Item A, outside agency to process employee. Oh, do you have a parent? Okay. Oh, Mrs. Fisher, call to the public.
Before we make the motion, well, there's no motion, it's a preview. So Sue Petrowski?
My name is Sue Petrowski. Good evening, President Paperman, Vice President Fisher, government board members, Dr. Finch. I am speaking tonight as a 15-year employee of the district, a voter, a volunteer, and a taxpayer. I have concerns regarding the preview item A, outside agency to process employee and parent satisfaction surveys. I originally made my concerns known to governing board members, Dr. Finch, and my principal in an email I sent because I was not able to attend the meeting in person. 2 board members replied directly to me, thanking me for my input and urging me to speak at a public meeting. 1 board member replied all, possibly violating ARS 38431, Arizona's open meeting law, by creating an electronic quorum of board members. This board member said, and I quote, "I am sorry you have been misinformed. There is no integrity in our surveys, and we operate outside of the law as often as possible, so long as it meets the agenda being pushed." End quote. The original agenda item from the August 22nd board meeting referenced policy BDH. This policy states, quote, The district may employ consultants when appropriate to carry out tasks or projects that enhance efficiency of operations. Part 1, when the district does not have the specialized competency on its staff. End quote. We have a very capable data analysis and accountability department here in DVUSD that completes these tasks regularly. Is there or has there been a problem with their work? Is there verifiable evidence that the department is not meeting criteria established? Is there evidence to justify the board's request that the district spend an additional $32,500 up to $66,000 for work already being expertly completed right here in DVUSD? This is not good use of our tax dollars or in the best interest of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. So preview item 8, outside agency process employee and parent satisfaction survey. Many parents, when the district provided survey to parents and staff, some of them will say, I did not get it, or one school, a whole school did not get the survey. So there were concerns with parents and teachers. So I did say I will bring it and put it on the agenda and let the board decide. So here, I requested a third-party survey to ensure there is transparency, effective communication with parents, staff, students, community members, and improving engagement trust with the district. By allowing a third-party survey, confidentiality, transparency will increase. Parents, staff, and community members will be open to be honest and truthful without worrying that it will be identified by the district. Surveys help communicate the district values. For example, when the district conducts a survey regarding bullying, it tells the stakeholders they are invested in improving school safety. Surveys also provide insights into how stakeholders feel and what they know. For example, when conducting a survey regarding the grading practice, it can help dive deeper into what stakeholders truly understand about the issues or concerns. Surveys also provide guidance and the decision making. For example, it can provide feedback, data in order to make changes that will improve the culture, climate, safety, employee retention, and engagement. So we do have 3 surveys that the district worked to compare prices. So we have McGraw International Surveys a year, 32,500. Panorama Education a year, 66,000. And Hanover Survey Company, 49,500. So this is what I said to the staff that had concerns and parents. We can try this for 1 year, see how it works. If they believe that this is going to be more transparency on their part, since some parents are saying we did not get the survey, and then one whole school said we did not get the survey. So we want to make sure that there's transparency within the district and that is measurable for the issues or concerns or what we want to improve for the district. So this is up to the governing board if they want to move forward with this. Any questions?
Okay, I just want to read an excerpt from Arizona Revised Statutes 15,341, 39B. Parental satisfaction survey shall be a standard random sampling procedure and provide anonymity and confidentiality to each parent who participates in the survey. The letter grade scale, parents' survey shall be direct parent to assign one of the following. I think I missed it. It says that it should be done by an external 25% shall be percent based who enrolled in the district whose letter grade, blah, blah, blah. The parent satisfaction survey shall be administered and scored by an independent entity that is select by the governing board and that demonstrates sufficient expertise and experience and to accurately measure the results of the survey. Go on to 39C, and it again says, the teacher satisfaction survey shall be administered and scored by an independent entity that is selected by the governing board that demonstrates sufficient expertise and experience to accurately measure the results of the survey. Twice in statute right there it says that we have to have an external. I believe there are other areas, but I just did a real quick search for two, just for survey, because I knew it was there. Statute tells us we should have an external survey because it does need to be confidential. It does need to be, and over the years it has gotten, we used to have it external. We did bring it in. Our department is still a good department. It is still aggregates data from all kinds of things. There's all kinds of other surveys to be done. But these surveys were put in statute to be done by an external entity because of the historical issues that school districts in general, not necessarily Deer Valley, have had a problem with. However, since this subject came up, we have had multiple parents state they never received the survey. They didn't receive it last year, they didn't receive it the year before. I have had employees say, I never received a survey. I didn't see a survey. I'm going to guess that's got to be in their email somewhere. I don't know about how Deer Valley does it, but when I worked for a district, it came to my district email. And honestly, they knew whether or not we took it, because if we didn't take it, we got an email saying, hey, you haven't done your survey, you got to turn it in. So we were monitored by our email that we did or did not do it from internal. So, which is why, of course, when I took the survey, I said, oh, everything's hunky-dory, because I'm not losing my job today for saying it's not. And so I have always supported these surveys to be done externally, not because I doubt Scott or Mary Beth. No. Is it Mary Beth? Yeah, I thought I had her name wrong. I haven't seen her in years. Anyway, it's not that I doubt their competency, but statute says how we're supposed to do it. And there are so many times that we just avoid the law, break the law, change the law. Well, if the law says this, but it says if versus and, or we can maybe change that word. And I have a problem when your first thought is to find a way around the law. There's a reason we have laws. And it's clear that we need to have an external company for our surveys.
There's a presentation. Mrs. Galligan? Oh, okay, Scott.
President Paperman,
Sure.
members of the governing board, there is a short presentation, but it's already been given in essence. It's just, the governing board has brought this to administration to look at external firms for these two surveys. Dr. Gallatin and myself pursued these three quotes. I already mentioned Hanover Research, McCrell International, and Panorama Education. Here's the criteria we kind of gave them. We wanted to maintain most, if not all, the historical questions in order to retain ability for trend analysis. They would need to build the survey and administer. You see the two surveys and the time frames there, provide school and district level reports. And we are asking them to return the de-identified results back to Deer Valley Unified School District. This is just a quick summary. You see the prices that have already been mentioned from the three firms and the capabilities they came back in their proposals. And those are the proposals are available in those board docs also. And that's the presentation now you've heard two times. Be happy to answer any other questions.
Any questions, board member?
I have a question.
Mrs. Orway.
Dr. Smith, how much legwork will the district be doing if we were to pursue a 32,500, a 49,500, or a $66,000 dollar outside firm to do this?
President Paperman, Mrs. Ordway, as with any project, when you're working with an outside firm, there's got to be somebody internally, managing the internal side of it. So definitely there would be, and I assume it would be the data analysis department unless otherwise dictated somewhere else. There would have to be the planning meeting, the meeting to talk about what are actually going to be on the survey. If there are new questions or new thoughts from the firm that we are going to do the survey with. And I would then bring those back to probably executive cabinet, and we talk about the legitimacy of those questions or the value of those questions. And so there would be a set of communications to plan and set up. And then the question comes to how do we deploy the survey? We have always deployed the survey internally with a direct email from Dr. Finch to all employees. And then we continue to put it in the Deer Valley Voice to remind people that the survey is out there. We put it on websites and on portal pages to make sure employees are aware of the survey. But every employee in the district would receive an email with the survey link to it. So I don't know how an external firm would deploy it other than that way. Also, as far as parents go, we have contact information for almost all of our parents. Some choose not to give us an email maybe or a phone number, but we have blasted that out to, in both texts and in emails to parents. And again, schools are encouraged to put it on their website and encourage their parents to take the survey. Just for your information, I've never had a survey in a year where I didn't get some results from every school in the district. So yes, there's legwork, and then with the follow up with getting the reports back, specifying what the reports are going to look like. If they were going to build a dashboard, what that dashboard would look like. So it's not, okay, we can turn this over, and data analysis can go do something else or focus on something else. There would still be some work to focus on both of those surveys.
I have another question. So since you have been at the helm of doing these surveys, and I hear meeting after meeting from Mrs. Fisher and Mrs. Paperman that there's many, and there's some schools and teachers that haven't received these surveys to take. What have you done to follow up on that to ensure that that would not be the case if it had ever been the case in the future?
In terms of anonymity, many years ago, I'm going to show 10 years ago, in order to better have the capability to slice and dice the survey and understand specific employee groups, we ask questions about their tenure, about their job, and we get very specific and come down to one person. You're the only person at this school that does that job. Now we know who you are. Because of that, we took those out. All we ask, are you a certified staff member or a classified staff member, and what school or department do you work in? So we've done that probably for the last 6 or 7 or 8 years to try to ensure some anonymity. Now, I'm sure if we wanted to, we could probably identify a person because they're the only one who responded, and they said, and maybe they said what grade they taught, or they even, some people even put their name in there. But the other way we tried to mitigate issues about anonymity is I've committed not to produce any results for a school or department that had less than 10 responses. So kind of at least have enough responses to make sure there's a mix of people in there.
And how do we ensure that each campus and employee department building has received the opportunity to take a survey?
President Paperman, Mrs. Ordway, as I stated, I don't know any other way rather than going to their door, but we send an email specifically with a letter from Dr. Finch. So it's coming from Dr. Finch's office to every employee in the district with a link to the survey. And then we continue to publish it in Deer Valley Voice and other communications that we send out.
And one more, as a person who is interested in data, you've been doing it for a few years, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
What would be the purpose of not being transparent or quote unquote tanking a survey? How would that serve your department or our district?
President Paperman, Mrs. Ordway, it actually it actually hurts my feelings a little bit because we work hard to provide data with integrity, whether it be academic data, perceptual data, programmatic data, or demographic data. I mean, down to finding out every little corner case so that we make sure we don't miss something. So I guess I don't know how it gets any better, a higher level integrity just because an outside firm is doing this, in my opinion, unless you're questioning my integrity itself.
Well, I appreciate all the work that you and your department put into it. And just saying, I'm vehemently opposed to an outside agency doing this. I would like to have a legal opinion on any of those revised statutes that Mrs. Fisher has ticked through. Thank you.
Any other questions, board member?
President Paperman, if I may. So to echo Ms. Ordway, it's funny that you had mentioned that. I sit up here and I tell everybody I'm all about facts and policies and processes. So I'm concerned as to how we could be in this particular position if this is an ARS. So I too would like to petition the leadership to get a legal opinion on our current process and how it stands up against 15-34, 341.39B to make sure that, if we're not compliant, we need to know that and we need to fix it. If we're not compliant, then it is what it is. And we need to go out and utilize one of these three opportunities. The feedback that I'm getting from the community is very similar to our public speaker in that we have classrooms in need and we're discussing spending anywhere from $30,000 to $60,000. The caveat to that is if it's a legal requirement, it's a legal requirement. So I would like to know from our attorneys where we sit on that, and if they can explain to us how we should not have an external survey, I'd like to hear that. So if we could do that before we make a decision on this, I'd appreciate that. The only thing, President Paperman, I'm looking for tonight out of this preview, since we need to come back and have further discussion on this after the legal opinion, is if we just reduce this down to 2, so we have an A or B in case we have to move forward.
Okay, so today, do you want to choose 2, you're saying?
I just want to drop.
Okay, that's fine.
No,
So
you
just,
can't vote on it because you didn't put it agendized as a vote.
Yeah, it's a preview.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Okay, any other questions?
I do.
Mrs. Fisher?
So you said that the two of you were looking. Did we put out a official solicitation, an RFP?
President Paperman, Mrs. Fisher, no, we did not. We solicited
So-
companies that we knew.
So you just went to companies that you knew and request, what would you charge us? So we didn't actually put out an official solicitation. There could be a company out there that would bid significantly less than these. Or significantly more, but. So we did not follow the procurement for solicitation?
Well, I believe, if Mr. Marinko, you can correct me if I'm right, if I'm wrong, that the the RFP process applies to things that are cost over $100,000.
It is below the threshold, but that doesn't mean that it's not a good idea. Just, just because we don't have to doesn't mean we shouldn't, because it's right.
One of the companies,
So my
Mrs. Paperman
concern
suggested.
would be that we would maybe go through an RFP. I am a little concerned about even trying to seek a legal opinion, because I can tell you, we've already had one of the superintendent's attorneys say, you guys don't have to if we write it in his contract. And then in here also states that we would have to vote publicly to do that. And prior board in the contract portion said, nope, we're not going to do that. We're just going to vote on his contract. And so there's already been the expense of one of the superintendent's lawyers to provide that. So rather than go through the whole solicitation again, provide the board with the information that was provided before. Let's take a look at the actual law and see if we are following the letter of the law and if we are following even the spirit of the law, because I would say we are not. But that, rather than waste the money for a legal opinion that we already have, and Ms. Ordway is aware that we already have it, I would say bring that information forward, and then let's look at that and let's see if that actually is to the letter of the law or the spirit of the law, or if it is just kind of what was pushed through by the board at that time. Okay, and that's all I would have.
Any other questions? Okay, so I just would like to say, I know Mr. Carver is saying, trying to save money, 6,600 or 3,500, but there was also concerns in the past previous board meeting getting $400,000 for POCs or for a program that's adding more PD to teachers, which many of them, they will prefer to have reading interventionists, math interventionists, and aides. So if we're looking at money, there's always going to be different perspective. The survey, what I'm looking for is transparency, because we need to have every community member, we need to have every parent, every teacher, every school to make sure that it's measurable, and in order for the district to look at the strength and weakness and how can we improve. So to me, this will be a good investment, because we're talking about improving our district, improving our academics, improving in different areas if we can have transparency. Okay, so we got,
I'd like
yes,
to say
Mr.
one more
Carver,
thing.
Mr. Carver.
Just to be clear,
Oh,
Ms.
sorry,
Ordway,
I
if I
can't
may.
see you talking.
No, that's okay. So I'm not, please don't mistake my point of a legal opinion as not understanding the necessity of this. I mean, from a business point of view, it makes perfect business sense to have an outside agency run the survey. As a businessman, I completely understand the necessity of that. My concern is to the stakeholders who, as I said, are reaching out to me overwhelmingly wanting to know why we would do this when we can't provide evidence of anything doing or going wrong or being done wrong. So that's why I'm just saying, if the legal opinion, if we already have one, great. If we could make that public to the board. If we don't have one, I'm still asking for one and benefit from any safe harbor that might be there, because if we're in violation of ARS, we need to know that so that we can correct it. Not about running an illegal district, just about trying to make sure we're following the laws and the needs and wants of the community. And right now we're kind of in a sticky spot, because the way I read this ARS is exactly like Mrs. Fisher says. It says shall, which the way I understand legal jargon means that you will. So I want to know from our attorneys how we've not been doing it all this time. Are we wrong? If we're wrong, then let's move forward and fix it. If we're not wrong, then let's have that conversation, and we'll have more opportunities for the community to get involved and let us know what they think now that they've been able to hear more information. Thank you, Mrs. Paperman.
Mrs. Orwell, you said you had a question?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's more of a observation. I would say that I don't believe boards push things through, but however Mrs. Fisher wants to categorize things, if we already do actually have that legal opinion, that's awesome, then we'll bring that up again. And the other thing is, if there is any information that goes to a fact that the past surveys have not been done with fidelity, that would be awesome to get some of that, because the anecdotal information just doesn't really do it for me.
Dr. Finch, will you be able to provide the legal opinion to the public and to the board so we can see
Yeah, for
what
sure.
we have?
Not a
there?
problem.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. So we're going to move to item B, grade configuration at West Wing Inspiration Mountain and Sonora Foothills School. Mr. Miglorino.
President Paperman, members of the board, Dr. Finch, this is something that we found as we were reviewing some documents that are maintained by the Department of Education, Arizona Department of Education, that the grade configuration at these three campuses, West Wing, Inspiration Mountain, and Sonoran Foothills, were established as kindergarten through 8th grade. And for us to have a preschool program in which preschool students would be given credit towards our ADM, our average. It's required that the board approve the grade configuration to include preschool, even if we don't have a preschool there. So we did go back and review the rest of the schools. So we're not asking that this necessarily add at these campuses, but we wanted the ability to be able to add in the future if we needed to. And since we found it, we thought we'd take care of it now. Again, this is just a preview item. The Arizona Department of Education requires official board minutes, and so this would be brought back at the next board meeting for your formal consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Miglorino. We're going. Any questions for item B?
I have a question.
Mrs. Orwell.
Mr. Miclarino, so this would mean that with our just crazy preschool needs, as soon as this would get in, would that give these campuses the ability to have all of the benefits being classified pre-K?
President Paperman, Ms. Ordway, it would give them the opportunity to consider having preschools at them. I will tell you that all three of these schools are at or near their capacity. So the practical aspect of them adding preschool in the, I'll say, immediate future would be somewhat suspect, but it would certainly give them the opportunity, maybe even in the future. And we are considering, I say all that, and we are considering a preschool for the West Wing campus currently. So it's not that we wouldn't be able to, we can't have a program there where the Department of Education will accept the students as being enrolled if the grade configuration is not approved. So yes, this action would allow us to consider that. The likelihood of that happening, especially like, for example, at Inspiration Mountain and Sonoran Foothills, is probably less likely just due to the growth in those particular regions.
She got disconnected. Yeah, she's calling her back.
Gary, are you getting her on the line?
Okay, so we'll move to Okay, so that's later, okay. So we're moving to item number 8, superintendent report.
All right. Give you an update of my progress of getting to my 500 classrooms a year. I've been to every campus so far this year, trying to get to round number 2. I have to get to 300 by Christmas, or I'll never make it. So I'm at about 150 classrooms. I went to two schools today, so I try to keep that pace throughout the school year. Ms. Sheila just informed me I have 80 teachers to visit in the next 2 weeks after the highest scale score growth were announced today. The perfect students were announced today, and that was pretty neat. And so we're giving out awards for there she is, for the greatest growth for our teachers. So greatest student growth. And so that'll be making those laps out again soon. Looking forward to that. We had just had our business partner meeting in this room, packed house, August 25th. Many of you also remember, and we're still getting buzz about the giving closet that was on August 24th at Berry Goldwater High School. We're continuing to work on a sister closet next door at Deer Valley Middle School, and that's still in the process. Just FYI for the public and for the board, I don't know if you saw it in the Friday update or not, but we did have a generous benefactor at Village Meadows, a former friend of the assistant principal there from Michigan, and she is going to update that library for free. So, and she has done this historically. She's a wealthy gal that loves reading and wants to help out Village Middle students. So I'm pretty excited about that, and we'll keep you in the loop as that continues on and gets updated. There was some pictures on social media if you missed that. The Difference Maker Luncheon just happened as well, September 8th. That's remember from the rally, we had about a dozen folks that were chosen out of 200 plus or minus difference makers. And so the students at Avenue 27 served them lunch, and we did that in honor of their great service to Deer Valley. So that was fun. Avenue 27 is a student-run restaurant, and if you're interested in attending, they go to our Goldwater website and find the Avenue 27 link, and you can email to get one of their dinners, to get a dinner date there via the website. It is, I believe, on Fridays for most of the middle part of the school year. It's pretty exciting to see students run an actual live restaurant. And it's a great experience as well as fine dining. So check it out. We have coming up Interfaith, our churches get together via Zoom tomorrow. So if you're interested in attending board, just let Sheila know, and she'll Zoom you the Zoom link. And last but not least, I just want to do another shout out to Brendan Salisbury, who was awarded tonight another recognition for his, he's a Bezos scholar, I believe first one in Arizona, one of 12 in the U.S. and Africa, I believe is what the announcer said. Another Barry Goldwater student, making a big difference with kids around mental health. And so his project, he wants to expand it to the other 4 high schools. So we're meeting with the lead counselors this week on a Thursday via Zoom to look to see what are the options might be to expand, if not the actual space, to expand the concepts for student wellness. So thanks again for Brendan for taking up this cause. That's it.
Governing board report, who wants to go?
Good evening. Last week, I had the pleasure of attending the ASBA Law Conference in Paradise Valley. It was eye-opening and inspiring. So today, my report is a little bit different than what I usually share, but it's very important still. I feel as though we are at a crossroads with our board. I want to start by saying that as board members, if we do not create a positive working relationship with one another, it will be detrimental to our students and therefore our communities. It is time to focus our time and energy on constructive efforts. We need to understand our roles as board members so we can put students first. We need to remember that we have an excellent cabinet and support staff at our district that know their jobs. Remember, they are experts in their field. They know what they are doing. The more time we take away from them micromanaging their work, the more time we take away from our students. In addition to micromanaging our amazing resources, our community has also, as a community, we are also harming our students through the use of social media. I am sure many of you are tired of me talking about this over and over, but the last couple of weeks it's gotten really bad with some of our board, to the point where they're making threats to community members through the references of biblical scriptures. In what society is this okay? What are we teaching our students? That being said, I would like to remind all board members of the best practices that we should all be considering before reposting. These best practices came from the recent law conference I attended with ASBA. Speak with respect regardless of your viewpoint. Be clear that you are communicating as an individual member of the board, not as an official district spokesperson. Direct complaints or concerns presented online to the appropriate administrator. Avoid posting content indicating that you've already formed an opinion before due hearing. Post only content that the district has released to the public already. Keep open meeting law requirements at the forefront. Only share information from public portions of meetings. Do not engage in gossip or rumors about district business. Repeating false information can subject you to defamation of claims. Consider the reach and purpose of your social media. Report suspected illegal activities such as harassing, defamation, defamatory communications. And keep in mind, you were elected to serve the school community. In addition, I have been thinking about our study session regarding the need for counselors and other supports on our campuses. We all know our campuses need these professionals for student success. However, we are limited to the state provides these funds and how much they provide. I would like to encourage Mrs. Paperman to share with her boss of public instruction, Mr. Tom Horn, about these concerns. She seems passionate, just as I am, about finding solutions, and Mr. Horn could be a great resource for her. Many of you may know that September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. As mentioned earlier, I spent 3 days at the ASBA Law Conference last week, and in the spirit of putting students first, I want to share and bring to the table a mental health solution that I learned about, which I believe could make a positive impact on our community. I'm requesting that this topic be brought to the agenda for discussion. I will start with a short background. The recent Center for Disease Control and Prevention survey found that shortly after the pandemic, 1 in 4 young adults aged 18 to 24 had seriously considered suicide. The CDC says suicide is the second leading cause of death for kids 10 to 24, up 30% across Arizona. The latest numbers show the U.S. is losing 20 teens a day to suicide. That's an entire classroom of kids every day. This takes me to the story of Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe was suffering from a very high number of depression cases, which were leading to high suicide rates, with very little resources to help, including mental health professionals. So with the little money they had, they began a project. And since 2006, they have trained over 400 grandmas with no professional experience in evidence-based talk therapy. They deliver conversations, support, and simply a listening ear as volunteers to their communities. They do this while sitting on what they call a friendship bench. The result? Significantly lower symptoms of depression and suicide cases in their communities. Imagine if we brought this type of program to our campuses for our students and our staff. We could have grandparent volunteers. They would require our volunteer training and fingerprinting clearance, and we could work on putting benches at our schools. Based on their availability, our grandparents could perhaps be available before school, at school, lunch, recess, and after school. Even in between classes for our high schoolers would be very beneficial for our teens. Costs would be low as there are volunteers, and I'm confident we could have benches donated and the schools could paint and decorate them. There is definitely more to discuss on the topic, but again, I would like to ask that it be placed on a future agenda for discussion. I think it could do wonders for our campuses and our DVUSD community. Thank you.
Mr. Carver?
I want to thank everybody for hanging in there tonight. Good board meeting. Some of the things that's gone on since the last board meeting, as has been mentioned, the giving closet. What was amazing to me, besides all of the work that was done on the giving closet at Berry Goldwater High School, was that not too long after word got out through social media and the news about the giving closet, I started receiving a lot of inquiries from the community as to how they could be a part of that. And that was beautiful. To Mrs. Simicek's point, life's a lot easier if we all help each other. And so that speaks to getting the community on the campus for things like the grandmother program, or there's a program out there called Watchdogs, which is where dads come onto the campuses and interact with the kids throughout the day, and just different ways to increase the number of adults on the campus to lend that ear, lend that helping hand, and give opportunities for the children. We can all admit that they could use the help. Business partner meeting was my first time going, and it was something to see. For those of you that aren't aware, we have a large base in our community of business owners that have taken a unique interest in the district, and they want to do whatever it is that they can do to help out, whatever that looks like. And so it was good to see them here, networking, getting to know each other, and trying to identify needs with abilities to fill those needs. And then I too was at the ASBA Law Conference. It was a good nearly a week. A lot of good information shared, a lot of Arizona statute discussed, a lot of good practices, what to do and what not to do. To that point, I learned that, on social media, I've only ever been on one form of social media, but before the class was over, I had gone on there and taken my shirt and tie picture off of my profile and put my family picture on there, and tried to make sure that there's no doubt that when I'm on social media, I'm not a board member. I'm just trying to help. So if I happen to put something out there in the world, it's because I generally am just trying to put people in touch with information and knowledge so that they can get the information that they're looking for, so that they can try to solve their problem. I only operate as a board member when I'm sitting on this dais. Otherwise, I'm just a guy that happens to be a board member. The law conference, like I said, was full of a lot of things. I happened to be the delegate to the ASBA. So that meant that Saturday I got to go down there and vote on the political agenda. There's a lot of good things going on in the middle of some of the ugly that we hear about across the country. But in our attempt to try to make sure that no child falls through the cracks, I just want to try to encourage everybody to understand that for every decision that we make, there's unintended consequences. And we, as a community and also as board members, need to do the best that we can to minimize those consequences. It's not okay to forego one person's rights in lieu of another person's rights. No one person is any better or more special than the next. And I saw a lot of people with really good intentions at that legislative session where we were trying to pass the agenda. But I'm afraid a lot of people, they hear the warm and fuzzy ideas and they run with them, not realizing some of the pitfalls that we might encounter. What does that look like to the tax base? What does that look like to the other demographic that we're not addressing? Things like that. So I ask us all to try to keep those kind of things in mind when we're trying to find that silver bullet. Very rarely in life are there silver bullets. I had this quote shared with me over the weekend that I think really kind of fits with what's going on, especially in our country right now. It's from Edward Gibbon. He wrote The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. In the end, more than freedom, they wanted security. They wanted a comfortable life, and they lost it all. Security, comfort, and freedom. When the Athenians finally wanted not to give to society, but for society to give to them, when the freedom they wished for most was freedom from responsibility, then Athens ceased to be free and was never free again. So let's just think about that when we're going through our life. We live in a country that's very unique and very dynamic, and we have a lot of opportunity. It's not for anybody else to give us that opportunity. It's for us to try to find a way to forge that. And up here on the dais, we need to make sure that everybody has that opportunity to experience the American dream. Thank you.
Mrs. Orway, is she still there?
Well, I'll
Okay.
echo all of the things that Mr. Simicek and Mr. Carver said, other than I was not able to be in person at the law conference. I think that our district continues to have growing pains, and I believe that those that work for our district, that work for our children, that work for the taxpayers, that work for each other, go to work every day with one idea in mind, and that's to do the best they can with what they're given to do. So we've had sports going on, we've had CTE events going on. We just have a lot of things going on with, 32,000 kids that are trying to find their way in the world, and it's up to the adults to give them a clear path to be the best they can be when they get to be adults. So if we could stick to asking questions, seeking information, not having the gotcha, I have the answer to that. If we could listen to words that come out of people's mouths and hear them, so when we're responding, we're actually responding to the thought that the person has given, it would be a really good thing. And Dr. Smith, I just do want to tell you that I so appreciate you and your dedication to making sure that the data that we seek to improve our district for our students and our community is of the utmost integrity. Thank you.
Mrs. Fisher?
Sorry, I was doing vouchers. I too attended the law conference. And I was a little surprised speaking with other board members, and I'll speak fast because, by the way, you get cut off and it is no longer records you if you're past your 5. I was surprised. ASBA is having a lot of concerns and issues. There is a political inner struggle happening within ASBA at this time. And for that reason, I would advise that any board members, whether it be this district or any other district, start getting involved. If you want to make ASBA the great organization that it once was, back 10 years ago when I first was around ASBA, actually more like 15 years ago because I was there as an employee, but it wasn't always the way it is today. And I think there's opportunity to start looking and potentially making changes. The law conference was good as always. Yes, we put the disclaimers. To ask that individuals will refrain from having their beliefs because somebody else's beliefs should rule is illogical, and I just think the whole conversation is different. I want to quickly go with some of the information that was provided. Parents have expressed concerns about surveys that are given to their kids. The concern is that the effort the district has made to go around the district having to get parental consent. And I understand that we made changes, I don't really know what they are, so that we would not be subject to 15117. And so parents have expressed concern about potentially not being able to opt out. Parents in the past have said that they opt out and that their children were still surveyed. And there's been concerns about that. So I think we need to take a look at our student surveys, and I think the public needs to know it never comes to the board. We don't approve the surveys. We don't approve they're going to be given. We don't even get to approve whether or not parents opt in or opt out. The district makes their decision and they do what they will. I do want to thank administration for providing the staff interaction with students following the meeting. However, I do still have concerns because it is not clear, and it's not the administration's fault, it's the board's fault, that we have not clarified our policies to make sure they're strong enough. And I still have concerns that people are potentially allowed to continue to work after having abused a student in a way. And it's not always sexual, sometimes it's physical. So I do want that to come back. I'll go back to the review of admin because I'm running out of time. Regarding the Friday updates, we have received a lot of information from the Hawkins family. All board members have seen the emails we've received. I would ask that administration provide to the Hawkins family what you claimed in the Friday update. Just give them a copy of it. We've been on all the emails, and I have to agree with the lack of appropriate responses. Sending an email out just to say you sent one doesn't mean you actually answered the questions of the individual. See the next person, see the next person, see the next person. I've been in those shoes and I felt that frustration. I also want to caution board members for giving advice, and I am going to have to go over that time for business, because individuals have been advised that all they have to do is contact Ms. Paperman and myself, and we can put an agenda item on the agenda. That is not the way this works. You cannot just request that we put one on and it gets put on, because it does not. Most of the time, even things that we want to put on, we have to fight to get on, and they don't. So no, the board has little to no control over putting items on the agenda. Regarding business for the board, Ms. Paperman, with myself, has contacted an attorney, district attorney, and I would ask that you don't turn off the microphone because this is district business and it is important to be said. When we did so, Ms. Paperman was going to be in a class, so she asked that I take the follow-up call. When I did so, I can say that the attorneys were clear that because the district attorneys, it sounds funny to say it that way, represent the superintendent for the district, they cannot, without a potential conflict, represent the board of the district. Since the board has not been willing to have our own attorney, and I don't even know how we would get our own attorney, but since they have not been willing to, there are several items that have come forward that our board needs to meet about and discuss. There are legal processes that we must go through to be able to meet and discuss. And I do believe we need legal advice. However, since the attorneys for the district have stated there is a potential conflict of interest, I would request that each board member individually, and not as a group, just individually, send to Ms. Paperman how you want to address the items that are before us. I can't discuss them publicly because they are confidential items. I guess we have an option. We either find a way to do it. One of us can take a stab at doing it ourselves, but none of us are lawyers. 2, we can find a lawyer. Or 3, we can respond to these items with the board has elected to not proceed with taking action or discussing these items. So, and we can't even tell you what the items are because then that would be a violation because we're not in a meeting. So I would ask that all board members just let Ms. Paperman know how you want to approach this, because that's where we're at. We have several items that must be addressed, in my opinion. They should be addressed in everyone's opinion, but I guess, but we can't without a lawyer. Ooh, somebody made him mad. It's probably me. The review of admin, that was also, I do want to thank, I do want to thank the efforts of data, but here's the problem with data. With data analysis, when the outcome is identified before the data is considered, the data is manipulated for the intended outcome. And sometimes I am very concerned when we look at, say, the Attorney General report. and I said this in a prior meeting, when you pull the Attorney General report and you look at the data, if you include Phoenix Union, it's skewed to where we are great. If you take just our actual peers, we are at the highest end of all of our peers. And I'm going year over year for data. So I would ask that we as a board, if we truly want to review the admin, we can take all the data that our staff want to provide, take the data from the Attorney General or Auditor General, and take a deep dive into what is actually needed. Do we need more admin at our campuses or what? So that's it for my report. The business side, the personal stuff I'll do, the nice stuff I'll do later, but that's it.
First, I would like to start with Stephanie, Miss. You're welcome to go and meet with Mr. Horn for your concerns and solutions. I will not speak on your behalf. He's open, to speak to the public, to teachers. So feel free to make an appointment with him. I also would like to clarify. Mrs. Finch sent an email, and I just would like to clarify with her. I would like to clarify to Mrs. Finch that I do not condone bullying, harassment, or false accusation on social media. I stand for full transparency. I am not afraid to call individuals on social media when it regards to making sure students will get a well-rounded education, providing to support teachers, and giving the parents a voice to stand up for what they believe for their children. I am the same person, classroom teacher from prior years where I advocated for students and teachers. I believe in education should be nonpartisan, where everyone comes together and make the best decision for the future of this country. So I just wanted to clarify that to Mrs. Finch. Also, I do have concerns with complaint. I have community members provided formal complaint, and I would like to know if Dr. Finch is responsible to look at this matter, or does the board hire an attorney? So we need clarification. So Dr. Finch, when the board gets formal complaints from parents or community members, who does that go to? Because I know Mrs. Fisher tried getting an attorney, it didn't work out. So if you can send that information to.
Specifically about him and about programs.
Well, we need to know what's the process for the complaints. Like, who does this go to? Yeah.
I can get that for you.
Okay, you'll get that. Okay. Also, with the public requesting to view Friday update, it seems that there's confusion. I know Dr. Finch had sent an email that the Friday update is that this information, I guess, is proprietary, right? Like, yeah. So, and then in a previous board retreat, the district attorney stated that it was okay for the public to get that information if we don't violate FERPA or any other policy. So if you can provide that to the board and also to community member, because it is confusing.
Yeah,
So-
Denise Lobrit actually wrote us an opinion about 6 months ago. I'll just put it back in the Friday update.
Okay, so yeah, so that would be great. So if we can clarify that. I also attended the ASBA, and I agree with Mrs. Fisher, Mr. Carver. There's great information for board members to learn the law, to be prepared, to understand the community. For example, there were topics such as Show Me the Money, Federal Funding School, how schools should respond, or how school can fund to respond to disrupted parents and school visitors. So there's different things that board members, superintendents that attend ASBA, there's great information that can prepare board members to understand the law. So to me, I thought that it was very effective to get that information and also to compare with the district policy. So this is all I have to say. And Dr. Finch, please provide that so there's clarification. And hope everyone has a good evening. And I'm going to adjourn because it seems like it's pouring right now. Yeah, so can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Michelino, can I ask you a question?